The very thing that you didn't get enough of as a child, the emotional void that you had, becomes the thing that you look for your entire life.
I would start saying that same thing. I don't want to mess it up. If you're telling yourself that in any dynamic, it is not the right dynamic.
Where in your own life is your relationship with your mom, your dad, your brother, your best friend, your teacher repeating itself over and over and over again because you still hold resentment to them?
And I'm not looking for a pedestal anymore. And so I feel that because I was able to integrate that truth for me in that context, again, it's almost like the mirror was reflected back to you in your context.
Right.
And then you served it right back to Danny.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that Talia paid thousands of dollars to get this lesson and we benefited from it for free.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Please, God, allow this conversation to impact as many people as possible, as deeply as possible. Let us be as truthful as we possibly can be. And let us use our words to spread the most love and light to as many hearts as we possibly can.
Amen.
Amen. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so honored you guys are here because you guys have impacted my life more than any humans in the shortest amount of time than anybody I've ever spent time with. And it's because both of you have the ability to say the truth, spot the truth, and look at another person with complete clarity that's allowed you to transfer your love to me and to others and we to each other. And every day I count my blessings, and every day you both are among those blessings because of how deeply you feel and how deeply you've reflected and how deeply you've spread your hearts into every room I bring myself to. And so I'm really grateful you guys are here.
He got me.
What was that?
It feels
30
so
seconds?
special. It feels so
yeah.
special to be here together.
Yeah. How many times have we had conversations, us three?
Oh my God.
And the first time this is a public conversation is, it's like a moment worth noting.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're going to have conversations like this for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And, you know, this podcast started out as interviews and started out with me trying to prove to myself and to other people that I could gain their respect and love. And you both helped me realize the respect and love could always be found within myself. So I didn't need anyone or anything to validate me. And it's like, I think people understand that, but to live in that is something that I hold for every human being. And I know we all do.
Yeah.
So what's going on with you guys?
Have you ever talked about that on the pod yet?
Talked about what?
The journey from March 2023 until now?
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been broken down explicitly since I just left my state and you help tell people.
Break it down.
I am the historian of the truth triangle. Always have been, always will be. Danny will never be the historian because do you remember what you ate for lunch today?
Sloan made me some eggs and toast.
Okay.
That's impressive.
All right. Look
That's
at
impressive.
you. We have
Not
some
that
game.
Sloan's cooking. That's a knowing.
Oh, that's a knowing.
That's impressive that you do remember.
Yes.
It's really beautiful because you are the queen of prompts. And I love that you just very intuitively started out with does anyone know what has happened between March of 2023? I think we need to go on a little like timeline.
People on a field trip.
Please,
Yeah.
Please, Elle. Take
Okay.
people on a field trip.
Let's take them there. Hop on the magic school bus with us real quick. Okay. So in March 2023, Daniel Miranda came into my life officially. What's really funny is that it could have happened sooner, but I ignored your Twitter DM.
Mhm.
It was the intuition, baby. They didn't want me. They knew I wasn't ready for what was about to transpire. But in March 2023, we were at a cocktail party and you walked in fashionably late. And I immediately was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's Danny. And there was just an instant like soul connection. This is my brother from another lifetime. And we talked, gave you the longest hug. That signature Danny hug lasts like 30 seconds.
Yes.
Everything disappears and you're like, I am one. I am one. I am truth.
I am here.
I am peace. I am calm. I am light. And I had one of those. And then for 45 young minutes, you and I sat in the corner of that cocktail party. And do you remember what I told you?
Well, I remember it was walk 33 for you.
Yes, it was.
And it was episode 333 for me.
Oh
do you
my
remember who
God.
it was?
Harley Finkelstein.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But that's all I remember, really.
So special. But for 45 minutes, I was telling you, because at the time, this is so interesting to see where your mind was.
Mhm.
The Danny of March 2023 was experimenting with how to brand the podcast. And I remember going to your profile and seeing interviewing the world changers.
Yeah. Or the world builders.
Right.
Yeah.
The world builders, changers. You would like mix it up and then you put like the mission in there. You're like trying to get to like, what was it? A million plays?
A million downloads a month.
Yeah, a
downloads
million
month.
downloads a
Yeah.
month. And I was like, okay, this is specific. The mission's in there. And I remember I didn't see very many women
That's right.
Right.
interviewed.
That's right.
And so this is the first thing I ever talked to you about.
Yeah.
I was like, Danny, you have something really special. You as a human being. And I need to see more of this person in front of me in the pod. And here are some things I've noticed that might take it to the next level. And I just immediately went into this mode of like, come on, Danny, like, let's go. Let's bring more Danny Miranda to the world. And then you came on Walk 33, which was just days
That is the
later. You were there
Wow.
as well.
Unreal.
But you did
But
not
real.
know of each other at all.
No.
It's funny because I remember in the opening circle, you were standing 2 people to my right because I usually get like an energy. You were actually standing next to somebody that I had met.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was so interesting. And I like read the room or the space and I was like, oh, interesting. Like he has like light energy.
Yeah.
And then we didn't talk at all. We did not talk at all the entire walk. We never really met. And then that walk was extremely significant. And it is really incredible that we all happened to be there. Like we were all there, which is special.
You want to tell the people what happened?
Sure, I'll tell the people what happened.
So special.
So this walk was significant. I also just want to take a step back because I did not know that this cocktail hour was days before that walk.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It was within days of the walk?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that seems significant because it feels like that was the beginning of the frame of your friendship,
Yes.
Yeah.
which was, we're going to talk about the pod, more people need to know and hear you. And then the frame of our friendship started that weekend,
Wow.
which I've never thought about. Thank you, historian.
Yeah.
Because she puts it all together.
Yes.
Wow.
So the frame of our friendship started that weekend. We found each other in a walk together. I believe this was our first walk, either first or second.
It was.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you, Lucas.
Yeah. So we were on this walk and we were talking with another girl, Katie, and we walked like the entire 2.5 miles. It's a 5-mile walk. So half of the walk, we were just walking. It was me, Elle, and Katie, and we were talking about relationships, or I should say they were talking about relationships. I didn't feel called to contribute much the entire 2.5 miles. I was really just in listen mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, just to take a step back, I remember being in like a really like deep state of love that weekend because I was planning this epic surprise party for Max and we had just brought home a little kitten. So it was just like love was everywhere. Yeah. And that's funny because I wasn't talking. It's usually like
unusual.
You didn't need to say
unusual for me when I'm feeling like overflowing love. I can't shut up, which we all know. So I didn't contribute anything. And then I think on the walk, on the loop back,
You were contributing.
what did I say?
Your presence.
Yeah, my presence.
You were such a grounding anchor in that conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Like you were very noticeably there the whole time for me.
Yeah.
And your presence was very comforting and a big reason why I even
sweet.
shared as much as I did. So
Yeah, that's
you were
true.
there.
Thank
you were
you.
doing everything
Yeah.
and saying nothing.
It's really funny because I remember feeling this wasn't normal for you because you're the host of the walks.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember having this thought of, this is very important that she is in this conversation for this long,
Yes.
which we
Yes.
didn't know until the loop back when I contributed in more than my presence.
Oh yeah.
And
She gave me a
spoke.
bombshell.
The wrecking ball started day one.
Well, I think it's an important realization for people to
Yeah.
realize about relationships
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
Which is-
The insight that
Yes,
I shared. Yeah.
yeah.
So we were talking about relationships, and I don't know if I fully knew how long you had been in your relationship, but understanding what makes relationships like thrive and makes them like deeply connected has always been something that I've been very fascinated by. Really because I grew up seeing my parents' marriage, which ended up in a pretty brutal divorce, and I didn't have a context for what made a healthy relationship. I didn't have any examples of that anywhere in my life. So I became very obsessed with looking for mentors or asking married couples, like what makes their relationship so resilient and strong. And so I had asked one of my mentors at the time, who has been married for 40 years, and I asked him what makes a relationship like resilient. And he said that in a relationship, there is a hierarchy of values that we don't really get taught and we don't think about that are really meaningful. And the first thing he said in that hierarchy is that there has to be a shared and mutual vision, a vision for your life. Like this is number one on the ladder. And think about that for a second. For most of us, we grow up in a society with movies and books and TV shows and just looking around ourselves at who's the most sexually attractive. It just starts in such a different way in terms of what we seek, what we look for and value early on. And so this was a real game changer for me when he shared this with me, and I studied that after. And so the first thing was a shared vision, a mutual vision for what you want your life to be and who you want to become. And then underneath that was respect for the vision. Respect for the person and their character and their morals and their values, which is really important. But again, I don't know if that's what we subconsciously look for or even consciously. Underneath that was trust. So vision, shared vision, respect, trust, love, and then sexual attraction.
You know what's fascinating is the first four are exactly what makes for a great friendship as well.
Yeah, it's really true. That is very true.
And that's what we found in each other.
It's really true.
It's like we all have a shared vision of the
That's
way
so true.
the way the world can work, full of love. And we have a shared vision for how we think people can get there
Yeah, it's really true.
through conversations and understanding themselves. And then we have respect for each other.
It's really true.
And we have love for each like
That's really true.
And trust.
we have huge
There's
trust.
so much trust.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a key part
Yeah.
of what makes our dynamic special is remember when oh wait, I don't want to hop around because you know me. I go to
You
like
go.
400 stories at once.
I get it.
Tell the people what happened after you gave me this insight and then we can move forward.
So we have this, I contribute. And the joke, by the way, for everyone listening, is that in our friendship, I am referred to as the wrecking ball.
Yes, she is, baby.
Because
I just
come at it with the truth. And then
Yes.
Danny is the cleanup.
Oh yeah, he is. He's the custodian
Danny wasn't there.
of
that
my
day.
emotions. Oh.
So I share this with Elle. And I feel this heaviness all of a sudden in the energy. Like, in fact, maybe a couple minutes after that, you were like, I gotta go talk to those guys.
I got force eject.
She'd bolted.
Oh my God.
Bolted. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know why, but I was like, oh, maybe I shared too much.
You shared just enough. Yeah.
So anyway, so then the following weekend, I had this surprise party for Max. We had rented a lake house and it was just really fun. And Lucas came.
Yeah.
And then Lucas and I were talking that Saturday and he was like, have you talked to Elle since last weekend? And I was like, why would I talk to Elle? I don't even have her number. He was like, oh. And I think something happened between Saturday night and Sunday. And then you reached out to me and you were like, hey, just by the way, something like our conversation really sent me down this emotional spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And it really brought up a lot of things for me. And I ended my relationship in the past couple of days. And I've just been in like but thank you. That conversation changed my life.
Yeah.
You would remember the details of your text more than I would, historian, but it was significant. Like, I got this text and I was like, holy God, I'm so responsible for this. Like, that was my initial feeling. Not the relationship, but I'm responsible to be there for you was what came up for me. I need to hold space for her. And so you can probably take it from there because I think I know where you're going to go with trust.
It was even funnier because I didn't reach out to you. I responded to you. You were like, hey, like, want to go on a walk? Because you just intuited. And I was like, hello, Talia. Our conversation really shifted something for me, and I ended my relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a nice week.
Well,
that's exactly what happened.
it's like the frame of all of these dynamics. This is how it develops and grows into. And that was something that I wasn't aware of with everything before meeting Talia, and how she says the frame of something starts is how it grows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that is so true and so powerful.
It's so true. It's really incredible to actually be sitting here and talking about the origin of our friendships because I never connected that dot with how it started for you days before we met.
Yes.
And it's just been that way for us. It's been that way for us in terms of how our frame started of our friendship and how it's grown. It literally picked up that way later. You reconnected and then somehow we connect through that. And it's just kind of always been that way.
Well, the frame it started in with you and I at that party was truth.
Yes.
Because I felt this overwhelming desire to like get you to see your greatness. Because I had listened to the pod a couple of times and then I met you in person for the first time. And I was like, there's a differential here that I feel a responsibility to shift.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that way. You know, like so many times, how many times we go on walks and I was like, I need to see more of you in the podcast, Danny. That's been like that from day one, but it really was. Wow. Like, that's why I felt that, like, at 45 minutes in the corner of that party, we didn't talk to anybody else. I just felt like I need to reach him. Like, I need to, like, get somewhere with, like, my truth in this moment.
Yeah.
So the frame was truth. Our frame was truth as well.
Yeah.
Because on that walk, it was mostly led by the other woman who was sharing about her relationship, but then I chimed in just a little bit. But I remember myself being pretty quiet as well.
Yeah.
And then when you came in, good old Wrecking Ball came in, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That was a dose of truth. That was an injection straight into the vein of exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And you were like the jumpstart for a knowing I already had. Like, it was just the loudest confirmation of what I already knew within myself. And that's what you both give me all the time. It's like we have that intuition, we have that feeling, and then you guys, without even knowing, will just come in and say the perfect thing at the perfect time that will get me to move.
It's really true.
It's incredible, but it started in truth.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really funny that our name is the Truth Triangle, because that's the frame.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Of course it was, but how interesting is that?
It is really interesting. And as you said that, it made me reflect on, in the same regard that you saw in Danny, where he wasn't stepping into his power and his gift in a public way. I feel like from the beginning of our friendship, I've always seen you as somewhat of a mirror of maybe an older version of me in relationships. And I've looked at you and been like, you goddess of a woman, what are you, why are you letting yourself not experience the fullness of what you deserve in a relationship? And so that's really funny because until you said that about Danny, I didn't realize that that's always been part of our frame, because that's always the truth that I've seen in you since the first time I ever saw you do the opening circle of the walks. I was like,
Really?
this jumping, trotting, gallivanting horse of a woman, like with her hair flying. She's just magnificent. What is
And
she
now
doing?
has a camera woman
Now as a camera.
for her opening speech.
That was not planned. That was the
That was
surprise
epic.
to everybody. I was also completely unfazed.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was
that
incredible.
speaks to
He
your
was
growth.
circling around.
That was incredible.
And he had a cowboy hat
I
on.
know.
He
That was
really
incredible.
went for it. Thank you, David.
Yeah,
You're out
thank
there.
you, David.
But that was not planned. I think people thought I asked for that. No, he delivered.
Yes.
That hilarity.
So that was the truth that I saw in you early on. You radiated love
Yeah.
and light. And then to get to know you in such a friendship and personal way has been so incredible, because that's the frame that it started in for us. And you have helped bring that out in me, in my own work, in my own life. I've helped you bring that out in you. It's literally like there is a thread that connects us in a deeper way than we're connected to all humans. And it's like a soul contract of some kind in our friendships, for there to always be a truth for me to look at and listen, and in the same exact breath, maybe at a different angle, the exact one for you and the exact one for you, and it's applied in a different context, but it genuinely feels like there's this thread that is just woven between us in such a beautiful way. And it has always been that way from day one.
Well, and it seems like that's what happened in August of 2023 as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Elle could probably tell that better than anyone, since she was
Literally.
in the middle,
Yeah. She
August
was.
and September.
Wow.
That's a
What
fun
a
story.
special place to be, in the middle of these two great human beings, the two loves. Come on. Okay, so August 2023 rolls around, and all of a sudden I start running in to this guy on the pedestrian bridge. That bridge, Holy Bridge.
Holy Bridge.
This Holy Bridge.
And it was not once, it was not twice. It was just multiple times of unplanned running into each other on a solo walk.
Yeah. Seemed like 5 or 6 times.
It was like unplanned 6 times.
Yeah.
You can't make that up.
Mm-mm.
It is just divinely orchestrated. And I remember the first time it happened, because you never know what you're going to get in a situation like that. And I will say, I don't usually feel called to let that moment happen with just anybody. But every time I would run into Danny, it was like, we're locked in for however long this needs to go.
Well, you were very hesitant to not take up my time. Let the record show.
I was.
Let the record
Because you
show.
were on a pedestal at the beginning.
Yeah.
Which, can I just plug in something for a second?
Absolutely.
So at the same time that you start running into each other, Elle and I had already established our weekly walk.
Isn't that funny?
So we're walking every Wednesday.
Yes.
And every Wednesday I'm hearing, I ran into Dan
Every week you were in our
It was
walks
wild.
every week.
And so can we back into the pedestal story
Absolutely.
later? But continue. That was significant.
It was. That was a big learning for us, the pedestal thing. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so you were present on me and Talia's weekly walks, because you and I had these unplanned weekly walks just about. And the first time that we ran into each other, it was like, okay, this is going to go for 6 hours. Let's just clear the schedule, get it off the books.
Yeah.
What truth is going to unfurl in this one? And it was like that every time.
Yeah.
It was just like, and I think you can let me know your experience of this, but you hold space for people all the time because of the podcast. But I don't think you had really had someone hold the space for you and be so focused on you for a very long period of time. I know your mom,
That's
of
right.
course.
Yes.
But
Shout
anyone
out
out
Auntie.
Shout out Auntie.
Shout out Auntie.
Mama Miranda.
Oh, the original.
The original.
Come
Sloan.
on.
The original.
The original Sloan, the one who started it all. The original
I
trademark.
love that we call it the
thing.
original.
Shout out Auntie.
She's so happy.
We love
Now
you so much.
She's doing a dance right
Wait,
now
we
in
gotta
her car.
shout out Mike. Because we can't have one. We can't have one icon without the other legends only. Thank you, Mike.
Hi, Mike. We love
Bringing
you.
Thank you, Mike. Gosh, he has been with us this week with your holy money,
really has.
Daddy. I mean, we just need to thank you, Mike. Our group chat turned into the transaction reports of one Daniel Miranda. We love to see it. Holy money. Anyway, back to the plot.
Holy money.
So holy rollers over here. Come on, doing the light work. Okay. Light work, heavy pockets. Come on. Shout out Cameron. We had that the other day. Okay, I'm really going too far. Okay.
No, not
This
far
is
enough.
how it is.
This is
Far
this
enough.
is literally
What
how
it
it
is.
is.
This is
This is really how it is.
Yeah.
We're bringing people into it. Okay. So anyway, me and Danny walking on the trail, having these insights. And that's what I was asking you. Besides your mom, had you ever experienced someone hold space for you for that long?
No.
Hmm.
Besides my mom, no. It was really special. It was really special. Like
Yeah.
the insights were really important. And it was both of us challenging each other to become more free, to elevate our own consciousnesses without even knowing the terms for stuff like that. But we intuitively felt like
Yeah.
we were seeing something in the other person that they weren't seeing,
Yeah.
and being able to poke holes in that.
Yeah. In the zoom out of the frame
Yeah.
and like help you see your frame from a bird's eye view.
Yes.
And that's what it felt like every time. It was just like, think bigger.
Yes.
I mean, every time.
Yeah.
Should I tell the people about that one conversation we had about the medium?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So just to give you an example of like what these insights are, because you know me, I like to be specific.
Yes.
So here's one that was a really big moment.
Mm.
So Danny and I were on the phone, and he was telling me about this group of friends he has, the moguls out in New York City. And he was saying, you know, we all want to conquer a medium. And it was like, you know, Zach has his writing and Hunter has its long form video. Dylan has short form video. Am I getting this right?
Something like that.
And I have audio. And it just immediately hit me
Mm.
as wrong
Mm.
for you. I was like, audio? No, it's so much bigger than audio.
Mm.
And I had this all in my head, but I didn't have a habit of challenging Danny's very deeply held beliefs
Mm.
until this very moment because of the pedestaling that was subconsciously happening. But I remember exactly where I was, standing in front of the fridge, about to grab a Diet Coke. And I was like, I'm going to let this rip.
Mhm.
And I was like, your medium isn't audio. It's live.
And I've repeated that to so many people, and every single time it's like, what an insight. Oh my God.
It's incredible.
Oh my God. And
It's incredible.
I felt the deep truth of that. We stopped talking for like 20 seconds, it felt like.
It was a long time.
It's incredible.
I just heard breathing on the other end.
Yeah.
Well, and it changed how I looked at myself forever. Because if I'm with someone in person,
Yeah.
that is a live interaction, and that's where I'm best at, according to you and according to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
It was like a deep knowing that you already had, you had just not seen in that way. Like you were so stuck in the frame.
right.
You were stuck in, I'm Danny Miranda, the podcast host.
Yes.
And because you were the podcast host, because that was your character,
yes.
audio was your medium
Yes.
True.
because you were too stuck in the character.
Yes.
And then when I said that, it was like, wait, if my medium is live, it's not just the podcast.
Right.
And if it's not just the podcast, my goal isn't just 1 million downloads a month. And if my goal isn't just 1 million downloads a month, what is my goal?
Right.
And you could just go down that rabbit hole
Right.
of expanding the frame.
Yes.
And we started talking about, of course, we started talking about you hosting live events
Right.
and retreats. You
Back then.
on that phone call, Danny.
and this might have been September of 2023.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
And it wasn't until February of 2024 that I actually started hosting retreats, and January
The Run Club.
and the Run Club, right?
Probably around December,
Probably around
November.
November.
Yep.
And so it was really impacting me at a deep level, these insights, these
Yeah.
and the thing is, it can take a while for those to manifest into, and it can be disconcerting when you've built up an identity of yourself as X and someone else is telling you, no, you're actually X plus Y.
Yeah.
And that requires you to do something slightly different.
Yeah.
You want to like grab onto the X because X is easier and you're comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
And so the fact that you guys could hold me with love and compassion as I was going through that change was the most important thing. It's hard for me to imagine me going through that without somebody shaking me and holding me and being like, you're good, we got you, and let's move on to something else here.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning too that when you say that it took a while for that feedback of your gift being live to integrate, there were so many other pieces of things that had to shift for you to step into retreats, for you to step into what you're doing right now. One of the things we talked a lot about was money in general and all of our beliefs around money, yours specifically. And so I'm just remembering this like ladder of steps that had to be taken, and it couldn't be accelerated. It couldn't be rushed because everything is always perfect. And it's so incredible how it's been like almost exactly 1 week after a next for us, there's like something significant that happens, or there's some significant insight. And so I think it did start. I think the train started really moving with that piece of feedback.
Yeah.
And you know what's really funny? I remember exactly what week that was that you gave Danny that live feedback, because we were sitting in our surrender spot on the trail and she was telling me about the conversation she had with you.
Yeah.
And she reflected that back to me.
Wow.
And she was like, Talia, your gift is live too.
Yeah. And then you were like,
that was
your gift is live.
And then it was like, yeah, we were literally just like, here's a mirror. Want to look at it?
Because I was so excited.
Yeah.
I was like, I gave Danny something good.
But that's what's amazing, because it was that exact conversation, that walk, that was the pedestal walk. That was when I gave Elle the inside of the pedestal, and then she gave that to you.
Yes.
How amazing is that?
So for context there, Elle was putting me on a pedestal and I was putting my guests on a pedestal.
Correct.
Yes.
And I had just learned in July, because I have hired mentors since I was 20, and I've always put my mentors and consultants on a pedestal where I'm like, oh, you know what I should do for my company. Oh, here's thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and here, you tell me, because you know more than I know. And it was that summer that Max and I had invested in these advisors, and they unfortunately really lacked ethics. They did not deliver on anything, and it really got to a point where it was just so unethical we couldn't not look at that anymore. And we had ended this relationship with them. We lost. We were out like a lot of money on that, but it was the best loss that we ever could have had, to learn the lesson of where I was putting consultants and mentors on pedestals, and where I had to start putting my own wiser voice inside my soul on the pedestal to listen to her. And so I had just learned that lesson. So when she, week after week, is going, Danny this and Danny, I'm like, if I hear Danny's name one more time like that.
Yep.
And so then we had this conversation, and it was funny because it was in the context of a romantic relationship, because that's how our frame started.
Yeah.
And I had shared with you that with my relationship with Max, and one of the things that I learned a lot through my lesson that I finally learned with the pedestal and advisors, I don't look at it that way anymore. And it's a mirror, not a pedestal.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a mirror in some way. In all of my relationships, and especially with myself. And I'm not looking for a pedestal anymore. Yeah. And so I feel that because I was able to integrate that truth for me in that context, again, it's almost like the mirror was reflected back to you in your context.
Right.
And then you served it right back to Danny.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that Talia paid thousands of dollars to get this lesson, and we benefited from it for free.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Are my ears? Yep, my ears are clear.
That's how it works here.
Yep. But listen,
Thank you, God.
thank you,
We
God.
all know that's how it works.
Talia, she invested in herself, and me and Danny just on the ride. Come on, this is what we do here. What do we provide?
Talia
Talia? Entertainment, hopefully.
So much.
Some laughs.
So much.
Oh, but
No, you provide so much. We're really joking here. But in that context, it's somewhat true.
Yeah.
It's been years,
Yeah.
like 10 years of investing.
And I think it's worth pointing out as well, where if you were still mad at the advisors or still putting them on a pedestal and still being upset with
Yeah.
yourself, you couldn't have passed that along to anyone.
no.
No, it's so true. In fact, the thing that helped me really feel complete with the relationship with them was I did something that I've never done, ever. Relationship after relationship with advisor after advisor. Anytime I felt like I was screwed over, and I was screwed over a lot because I honestly was looking for my dad. Like I was looking for a father figure, and also grew up with a father that was really unethical and just kind of wacky in a lot of ways. So he had really toxic behaviors that unfortunately manifested in a lot of the other advisors or people that I was looking for as the parent figure to guide me. And so I had to learn that lesson brutally many years after each other. And the thing that I had never done was I never really spoke the truth. I always was like, you know what? I've learned some incredible techniques from you. I've learned processes from you. I've made tons of money. Like, God bless you on your way. I want nothing to do with you. And I would just kind of like cut them off, similar to relationships with you, where I would just block
The
them.
face.
The face.
Oh,
This is
The
Elle's
face
face.
was caught.
That's my face.
It's
of
the
truth.
best face.
I love cutting people off.
If we had the blanket,
I cut people off this week. Look at me.
if we had the beanbag and the blanket, she'd be in. I did.
Did we catch that? Oh. Oh.
So I would cut them off.
Yep, I know about
And
that.
then this time, it was so interesting because Max and I have both invested in these mentors and advisors. And
By
Max,
the way, Max is your
Max is
current
my
boyfriend.
fiance,
Yeah, it's a fiance.
soon to be husband. We don't say boyfriend anymore. We've evolved.
Okay.
We just call each other fiance
Good.
even though we're not engaged.
Yes, you
There's
are.
no ring yet.
The families have been told.
Yeah, that's true.
We have a wedding date.
Okay.
We've got the venue. It's like
Okay,
the whole
so-
thing. Anyway, so Max is my fiance, soon to be husband, was boyfriend, whatever the heck you want to call him. I used to say partner, whatever. So Max, my dear love, invested in these advisors with me. And he's a very logical, like him and Elle share a large part of their brain of like numbers, facts, like evidence. Yeah, rationale. So Max was looking for like those benchmarks of like, oh, this is very clear that they are not delivering on what they promised us. And we were investing thousands a month, like thousands for a half-hour call a week. And then I, at least 4 weeks in, started having a very sinking feeling intuitively that these guys were not good guys. That they were, it's funny because my dad taught me that in many ways. His nonverbals and the way he carried himself and the way he wouldn't make eye contact or the way he would elaborate on stories and just like, he could mastermind a story from nowhere and you would believe him. And I saw these very similar traits in these advisors, one of them specifically. And it just started to feel very off for me. And I even had a nightmare. I had a nightmare 2 weeks into working with them because they were doing a lot of data gathering for me in the business and our financials and all this stuff. And I had this nightmare that they never delivered the business plan that they, on paper, promised was the basic deliverable.
Mm-hmm.
And then for weeks, they're like, oh, we'll give you the plan next week. And then the next week came and they were like, we'll give it to you next week. And my intuition was screaming at me. And then Max and I had to navigate where my intuition was screaming and his was like, okay, I need to just see how this plays out so that I have something to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, they had kind of manipulated us into then starting a JV with them a month in to them helping me grow my company.
What's a JV?
A joint venture of basically starting a new business with them and having a significant amount of equity in that and it being like an asset for us. But the business was worth nothing. It didn't exist. And they were just really good at manipulating us as young people with drive and ambition and talent to be in this company with them. So it started to get really confusing, I would say. Anyways, months go by and I'm just like not feeling good. I can't even get on the phone with them anymore. It's feeling that uncomfortable for me. And then I was in LA. I had this massive insight around what was happening in the relationship because of somebody else in my life who said to me that there are a lot of people out there that will prey on young talent. And she just said that, and it wasn't like an accusation. She kind of just said that as an entrepreneur that started young as well. And I just sat with that and was like, oh, this is exactly what's happening. This is what's happening. And I've always seen the truth, and now I have to speak the truth. And then Max and I had one of the most powerful conversations we've ever had. This is something you've helped me work on. You know how I interrupt, and I would interrupt, especially when I was passionate about something and I feel like I have to get it out. It was one of the first conversations, especially, we've not had many like tense experiences or moments of conflict or friction between us. We've been really blessed. This was one of the more, it wasn't a lot of friction. It was heavy. And I flew back from LA and we walked around town and it was so powerful. He shared some of the insights that he had and how he feels around the relationships. I shared mine. We were going back and forth and it was like we were chiseling away at the truth together. And by the end of that conversation, we felt so free because we felt so clear that this was not good for us. And when Max gets on board with it too, and he always does, that's what I'm so grateful for with him. We have the same vision of what we're not willing to tolerate and of what we do want to experience. And so whenever we've had to navigate things, whether it's been things in his life, his business partnerships, or me and these advisors, we really are on the same side of truth. We back into it in a different way. And I think this is very female and male, and you can speak to that because that's your gift, masculine, feminine, of the feminine feels deeply. It's like an intuitive hit. And the masculine energy has to pull through all the threads mentally and look at it very logically. And so we were able to do this. And just to go back to where this was different for me and I finally took them off the pedestal, it was because we had paid, so if you do the math on it, I think we had paid like $1,300 for every 30 minutes that we worked with them. It might even be $1,500 for a 30-minute call.
I hope to get those rates one day.
I know.
Yeah. Sign me
And
up.
also deliver on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's $1,500 for 30 minutes.
Great.
It was amazing. And we had not been given anything, so it wasn't so amazing. Yeah. But then we basically terminated the relationship. And the advisor was like, well, technically there's 1 week left of the contract that you paid for this month. So let us know if you want that call. And Max and I initially were like, yeah, like what the hell are we going to say to these guys? We don't want that call. And then I had to sit with how important it was for me to speak the truth. And I reached out to them the next day and I said, yeah, I do want the call. And what I want is for you to listen because I have a lot to say. They got on video. I did not get on video. I did not feel like looking at them. It was very difficult for me to stomach looking at them at the time. So they were on video and Max and I were not on video. And I just let it rip. Not in an aggressive way, in a very like, this is the truth way. And I was somewhat even emotional because I was so disappointed in them and in myself for not catching the pattern early enough. But the truth just spilled out of me and it felt as though I was speaking to every mentor or consultant and even my father in some way and speaking the truth that they were almost a surrogate of for those people. And it was so powerful. And Max just stood there like the general that he is. He just stood there and held space for me to say everything and not leave one word unsaid. And then I basically wished them the best. And that was it.
I think what I really feel called to highlight is like, we repeat the patterns over and over and over again until we close the loop.
We do.
And to my knowledge, you haven't hired a mentor consultant since then. And the idea...
Almost. Which one? Remember when you called me and you were like, there's somebody who I just met with wants to go into business with me.
Yeah, but not a consultant. He was like, I want to partner with you.
Same energy, though.
Same energy. It was the same energy.
That's
it was
what
just
I'm
not
calling it. That
an
was a
exchange
big
of money.
one because you
Yeah, that
chose
was.
differently. And
Right.
you called me knowing the answer to that situation.
You're
She
right.
calls me,
Right.
it was like noon. She's like, hey, can you
Yeah, you're
talk on the
right.
phone real fast? I just need to get your gut check on something that I probably already know.
Yeah.
I think those are your
That was
exact
amazing.
words.
I did say that.
I get on the phone with you and you tell me this story and I'm just silent. I'm just listening because I can hear in your energy.
Yeah.
There's a pedestaling happening.
Absolutely.
And I knew you'd see it. If you just let it rip, I knew you were going to see it. I didn't even have to say anything. And then you finish and you're like, I'm doing it again, aren't I?
Yeah. So the question becomes, like, for someone listening, it's like, where in your own life is your relationship with your mom, your dad, your brother, your best friend, your teacher repeating itself
Yeah.
over and over and over again because you still hold resentment to them?
And maybe because you haven't spoken the truth to them.
Yes.
Correct.
And that is going to keep playing until you close the pattern. You have to close the cycle with expression. It doesn't just happen. It does happen in part by healing the relationship internally and going from resentment, anger, absolute disgust to understanding, acceptance, forgiveness, gratitude.
Yeah.
Like it does have this range of emotion internally that you have to go through. But one of the things that I had to realize is it doesn't end there. And that's why we are all so passionate about communication.
Yeah.
It has to be expressed. And we're learning even more right now in our journey at the moment that it actually has to be expressed through the body. There is a whole other layer because there's the emotion and the mind. And then your souls need to be like, here's the pattern. I need to express it. And then there's the body, which stores all of this stuff, which we've been really blessed to learn about lately.
Absolutely.
But it needs to be spoken.
So what happened now? Let's say we're at September of 2023.
Yeah.
We haven't even met yet in this this dynamic.
September 20. I can't come back.
Not
yet.
even.
Thank you,
All
Astoria.
right, here she comes. All right,
Pulling out
A
the
new
folds of-
nickname.
The files are being
It's like that
pulled.
scene in SpongeBob where he's like pulling out all the filing cabinets. That's basically my brain.
Just-
so
that's
here it
the date.
comes, August 2023. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, so Danny and I have run into each other countless amounts of hilarious times on the
Yes.
pedestrian bridge and have probably spent at this point probably over 40 hours talking.
Yeah.
All of those walks combined. I mean, one of them was 10 hours long. Just to
I
get,
believe it.
if people want to
Yeah.
know what the dynamic is, it's this for 10 hours. We have a time cutoff today because Danny has another amazing conversation
Would
to
go
have.
on forever.
But this could be a 10-hour. Listen, we could be here
Live
all
streaming,
day.
live streaming by the fire.
We honestly should.
Yeah.
We should.
But September 2023, okay, in the file. So Danny and I have spent hours and hours together.
Yeah.
I now feel, because of that, your medium is live conversation.
Yeah.
I feel bolder and bolder every time I run into you. And I feel like I can speak the truth and the pedestal. I'm taking you off the pedestal with every time we're talking.
Yes.
And just so everyone knows what that meant for me, because I really have, of course, thought about it and felt into it very deeply. It was because of the way you showed up as a man
Yeah.
that I put you on the pedestal. It was not the podcast.
Yeah, it's true.
It was not, which is interesting
It's
because
really
I think
important.
for most people it would be, oh, this is a big shot and he's got this big podcast and he talks to all these people. I didn't care about that.
Yeah, it's true.
It was the small moments of watching you show up with so much love and strong boundaries that blew me away. Because I was a people pleaser when I met you. And the smallest things I'd watch you do, and I told this story probably 30 times, and here comes number 31.
Great. Perfect.
One day after the walk, a group of guys comes up to Danny and goes, hey, Danny, you want to go get tacos with us? And he just looks him straight in the eye and says, no, thank you so much. That was it. There was no like made up excuse. There was no fumbling around. There was no anxiety. It was just a no.
Yeah.
And it was so beautifully received by this group. And I would watch you just exist and be like, holy shit, this guy has figured out.
He knows how to say no.
This guy, who is this man? And every time I just watch you have a normal interaction, I was blown away because these were the simple things I couldn't do. So I wanted to let everybody know what the pedestal meant to me, because that was a very, very big part of it. Yeah. And it can be in any sense, like with Talia, it was your relationship with your fathers playing on repeat.
Absolutely.
And it was looking for that father figure in other people. With me and you, it was, I had never had that unconditional love and strong boundaries modeled for me. I had a lot of unconditional love. The boundary piece, I was completely unfamiliar with. And so that's the gift that you gave me. So I just wanted to put a pin on that one so everyone knew like what that meant. Yeah. What did the pedestal mean for me? Yeah. So back to September 2023. I had given Danny a lot of insights. He'd given me a lot of insights. We had gotten close. And then me and Talia are having these amazing weekly walks. And they are both so present in my interactions with both of them without ever meeting.
How come you didn't introduce us?
Honestly, Talia would ask me that because I would be like, oh, Danny, you remember this? I was sitting in the Chipotle parking lot one day. I rip off a voice note out of nowhere. And I'm like, hey, Danny, I just want you to know there's a soul connection between me, you, and my friend Talia. And that just is what it is. And you're going to meet one day and you're going to see.
But I'm not going to introduce you.
And I'm not going to introduce you, but it's going to happen and in divine timing and it's going to pop up.
Well, I think what accelerated it is that, yes, we were very present in your life, but there really was that going back to that thread.
Yes.
Again, you would tell Danny about the live feedback. It would come back to me. I would tell you about the pedestal. You would tell Danny about the pedestal. So it was literally like we were having conversations with each other,
Absolutely.
But never really in the flesh.
And that's why, for whatever reason, there was just an intuitive knowing of it's not the time.
Sure.
I just never felt called to introduce you both because, and looking back, it all happened exactly as it needed to, because we were able to integrate certain things together. And so were we.
Absolutely.
That made your first meeting the miracle that it was.
Absolutely.
And if I had introduced you to Talia sooner,
totally,
I don't think you would have clicked the pieces into place that you had needed to have Talia's conversation hit you.
It was really divine.
It was divine.
So it was divine. Yes. Like, was I slacking or was it divine?
No, we say that with love.
We're going with the divine.
We say that with love. We all know it was divine.
Yeah.
We all know. It always is.
We just joke.
Well,
we tease you.
In September, you listened, I think, to my Alex Hormozy episode.
Yeah, that was September.
And you sent me a LinkedIn message about it. Yeah. And then I was like, we should go on a walk sometime, but I never really followed up with specific dates.
Yeah.
And then in early October, I was like, when should we go on a walk?
That's
then October 15th is the day that will forever ring in my mind 6 months before or after your birthday. Yeah. And it changed my life.
Yeah.
And that was less than 6 months ago.
It's less than 6 months ago, which is so wild. I still can't process that.
That was the first day we met. October 15th,
it's so wild.
Please tell us about the Holy Walk.
I mean, it's so funny because I hadn't watched any of your episodes. Like, I didn't really know much about the pod. I really just knew you through Elle. And then I watched this Hormozy one. And I just felt like you had so much respect for the art and the presence that you chose to give to the guests. And that just really came out on that. And I was like, wow, that's a really beautiful, I almost like resonated with that of like, that's a beautiful devotion of yourself. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so then we meet October 15th. And it was like, I think both of us had the feeling within minutes that like you were my brother.
Yeah.
Like you literally turned to me and said, you're my mother's daughter.
Within 5 minutes. 5 minutes of meeting you.
Yeah.
And we've become best friends.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how does that happen? Yeah. How do you know immediately? Like, I knew immediately we'd be friends. I saw your post, Elle, on Twitter, your pinned tweet. I was like, we're going to be friends. I just know it.
I knew too.
And it's like, how does that happen where you just know instantly?
I think there's like a wavelength thing or something. I feel like Max could speak to this so much better because he listened to a podcast that said it beautifully. But I feel like it's a recognition of a certain energy that you have in yourself. And you're like, oh my God, I love you.
Yes.
You also exist.
Yes.
I love that I have this. You're here too. Oh, this is so fun.
Yeah.
Like when we met on the walk on the trail that day, we were jumping.
Yes.
We were levitating on the trail.
Yes.
Because we were just so excited about growth and life. And it was just it felt like we were high.
Yeah. It
Really?
did. It genuinely did. And then we do the exercise
That's right.
that was after, and you like,
I don't feel called, by the way. I don't walk around being like, we should do this process together. Like, it was very intuitive in the same way that it wasn't intuitive for you at the time to introduce us, or the way we all have intuitive hits. Like, it was hold on, this is going to be very significant for you. I learned this process 10 years ago. It changed the way that I looked at my gift, and it changed the way that I showed up in the world. And I was like, I want to do this with you. And after I think an hour of walking, we hopped to the Holy Hyatt.
Holy Hyatt.
Holy Hyatt. And we just sat there and did the process. And I've never seen, I genuinely have done it close to 1,000 times. I've never seen anyone just nonstop write. Just writing and writing. Because there are 5 prompts. And the prompts are really, they're directed as like, write down adjectives, simple words, as if you were writing like a child. And it's like, you were writing an essay. And I was like, wow, this is significant for him. And then I thought about the feedback that Elle gave you weeks before we had even met, because she was telling me all this stuff. And it felt like it was when she said, you need to speak more, you need to express yourself more, not be so much of the host, but also a guest on your own podcast. That just felt so true as you were writing. It felt like you had so much to say.
It was fascinating because the same exercise basically happened 3 different times in the same week.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. It was like Talia did it. My friend Jackson did it with me. And I think an Intuitive did it with me as well.
Wow.
And Talia's was most powerful because of her presence, because of how she led me down this road. And it was like, oh, I was supposed to get this insight about who I am in this moment. And I was supposed to get this insight that the thing that I lacked as a child was emotional availability and consistency from a masculine role model, was the story that I was telling myself, and guidance and assurance. And I was like, oh my God, I can do that in every moment. I can guide people in every moment.
So the lesson, one of the deepest takeaways from this exercise, is that the very thing that you didn't get enough of as a child, the emotional void that you had, becomes the thing that you look for your entire life. You look to fill it. You look to fill it because it was empty. And you don't get it because of too many reasons. A, you may not have the parents that have the capacity or availability to give it to you. B, you don't know how to communicate what you need. So it goes back to communication there. And so the very thing that you didn't get enough of actually becomes like the thing that you search for. And you search for it from this place of emptiness, of dependency, of need, and of lack. And when you get it, you don't feel like it's enough because it's a very short dopamine hit, or it's a very short feeling of being satiated until you need it again. It's like a drug.
So to make it practical, I was seeking that emotional masculine figure in the guest that I was having on the podcast. And the actual solve for it is for me to become that.
That's right. So those 3 stages, the first stage is that exactly.
What are the 3 stages? No.
I just want to make sure we're giving everyone who's listening the practical application for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Please
let it rip. She's like,
I'm loving this. Come on, T.
So the first stage is where you live in this world of needs. And you can refer this to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or I look at it as more of a psycho-spiritual model. So there's the needs, the need of the emotions you needed as a child, which all of us have. And then you search for it. If you stay in that stage, you become codependent on other people to give that to you. Stage 2 is the world of independence, where you give it to yourself. You learn how to guide yourself. You learn how to give yourself assurance. You learn how to give yourself the things that you needed the most from your parents or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And then stage 3, this exercise is called your reason for being. It's what I've really helped it evolve to become in my world, but I did learn it from a mentor that I met in my early 20s. And the reason for being is the very thing that you needed the most is actually your gift on this planet. It's the thing you're here to give because only you know what it's like to be denied that. Therefore, only you can give it because only you were denied it in the way you were denied it. So the practical application for me, and this changed my life, like it genuinely changed my life. My thing that I needed the most of as a child was I needed to be seen for the pain that I was in. I needed to be seen for the pain I was in, and I wanted to be seen for how amazing I was because of the pain. So for context, grew up in a very abusive household. My father was one of my greatest life teachers, and he was my greatest teacher in life. He delivered like lifetimes of abuse in the span of the 15 years that I had him in my life. So he was just like the gift that kept giving. And so because of that, I genuinely just needed attention and to be seen for what I felt like I was seriously suffering through. And so I looked for that in many forms. I had this best friend in high school that I've shared with you about, where I would tell her all of the things that was going on in my life and where I was suffering and things that he had done, because I just wanted her to like love me and give me attention. It was like if she knew all this crazy shit that was happening in my life right now, she would never not be my friend. It was such a deep need, and it was really creating really toxic friendships and relationships in my life. And it almost felt like I didn't know how to live without that. So I developed this, it was almost like this dependency on a story of like, the more I shared all the shit that I was going through, the more people would have empathy for me. And that would be the way, not the lighthouse, but like literally the way that people would come to me and give me the love that I needed.
I need you to hold space for me.
I need you to see me.
I need
you to see me. So what I wrote on that exercise was being seen.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I get to college and I'm like an entrepreneur by 19. I'm studying psychology and business. I start this babysitting company that turns into a whole company called All-in-One in Manhattan. I'm taking like friggin' in my dorm, in my single dorm, I have rugs and kids' toys, and I'm literally walking it every day because I couldn't afford a monthly rental or a monthly lease. So I'm renting this dance studio for an hour a day. And every day I'm literally dragging rugs and toys from 29th and Park to 27th and Park to set up the studio. It was like hustle mania for me in New York. And I did it because I was like, oh, I want to be seen as a cool entrepreneur. I want my friends to see me as like this epic businesswoman. Anyways, so then that burnt me out really fast. And like my whole world came crashing down. I feel like there was just a lot of trauma that resurfaced for me around that time as well from my childhood. And I like needed help. So this is such a longer story, but the short version is I start looking for mentors and coaches and not therapists. I didn't feel that therapy was working for me. It wasn't helping me move beyond what I was feeling at the time. I know there's a purpose it plays for so many people. For me, it wasn't enough. I felt like I was just reinforcing the feelings of pain and suffering without actually healing them. So I went unconventionally to these other programs and looking for programs that were specifically around trauma therapy. Anyways, I find this company in Canada, this mentor that I hired, and he shares with me this process, this reason for being process, 6 months in. And I'm already a different person by then. It was wildly transformative. Also because I was really ready. Like I had really hit a breaking point with my own suffering. And I feel like that's really key. I don't know if either of you relate to this, but I really had to hit a rock bottom. And at the rock bottom, there were like 2 choices. It was like, this is game over, or this has to start a new game. This has to start the healing game. So the rock bottom, I think wanting to heal so badly was what helped me get the most out of this year with this mentor and this program. And for context, he was in Vancouver, BC. He has a trauma therapy business or training program. And he had a mastermind at the time with like 15 other doctors. They were like endocrinologists. All of them were doing something in the medical space. And they were learning these trauma techniques to help their patients heal on a holistic level. So I get invited into this mastermind as a 20-year-old. And I'm like, I just need to be the patient. Like, I just need help. And they basically, I just paid them what everyone else was paying them. It was $30K for the year. I was dead broke, which was a whole thing in and of itself. But I learned this process there. And in the peak of my suffering, I find that the thing I needed the most was being seen. And I was like, oh, I'll never get that from this place. Like I've been chasing this my whole life. I think that it's time for me to start seeing myself. I think it's really important, that stage 2 of like, I need to look at myself in the mirror and start like loving myself.
Yeah.
And start helping myself. That stage 2 was so crucial. And that process really helped me realize this trap, this vicious cycle that I was in of being dependent on other people to give me what I didn't get as a kid. And then stage 3, which was, oh, I'm here to see people. I can see people. I can look at somebody that I've never met and I can feel the energy that they have and what they've been through in their life. And I can see it in the words that they speak and in the energy behind their words. I can read it in their nonverbals. I have the gift of sight. Great. How the hell am I going to use that? And then it just became a 10-year journey of figuring out how I wanted to channel that into a gift. And it started with working with people on a more personal level. And then I became really excited about businesses and where so much of where we can't build the relationships that we want or build the traction that we want gets lost because we don't know how to communicate our real intent. We don't know how to communicate like in an effective way. Therefore, people don't really see us. And so anyway, that just was the translation of that into business. But it was the thing that changed my relationship with myself and my gift at such a young age.
Yeah, it's so interesting thinking of you as somebody who couldn't even see themselves because of how clearly it seems like you see both of us and everyone you interact with.
You know what's crazier is that no one remembers me being in that program. The first 3 to 4 months, they don't even remember seeing me physically because I was that much of a shell of a person. I could not look people in the eye. I literally sat like this in the couch of this man's mansion, and no one remembers me being there.
Wow.
So yeah, that was very interesting.
And so the furthest manifestation of that is you seeing the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's so beautiful. And you can channel that I can channel that anywhere that I want. I've chosen to channel that in business because I feel like it's a door into where a lot of people, executives or high performers and overachievers are really suffering from things in their past that they've never really reconciled or healed. And that gets really channeled into the business and the way they communicate with their people and their team and their clients. And it just feels like an area where there's a huge impact that can be made. If I get to work with a lot of executives today who they think they're hiring me for communications and sales. And it's like, when we peel back the layers of their life, because I can see it, it's so transformative. That gets to be worked through and then channeled into the business, which is what they want in the first place. But so much of the times I think that, and you could speak to this a lot, so much of the times I feel like we reject or disregard who we are as people and what we've been through for the achievement of something that is going to give us praise or success or money and a business or notoriety or influencer status or whatever it is. And it's an extension of us. And I feel like that understanding is really lacking in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that it's funny because I don't think people even understand what the thing is they lacked as a child. I remember asking this in an Uber ride about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. It's like, what did you lack as a child? Silence for a minute.
Wow.
And it's like, that's the first time he had ever considered that question.
Wow.
What a gift you gave him.
So I was like, you don't have to tell me the answer right now, but that's definitely something to journal on.
Wow.
Because that's what you're actually here to give. And this is a 60-year-old guy who's so proud of his daughter who's working as a physical therapist because her in her childhood, she didn't get the care appropriately. And so it led me down this track with him. And I'm like, what a gift it is to bring his awareness and attention to he doesn't know what he's here to do as a 6-year-old man.
Wow.
And it's actually completely related to the thing that he lacked as a child.
What was it for you?
Yeah. What was it for you, Elle?
We've never asked you that.
Well, what's funny is I haven't had the process done on me to this day. Danny got it before I did. And
It's
I
always
still
like
haven't had it.
anytime I've brought it up, it's always felt like forced. Like it's like
Well, it's for a reason.
It feels like the time is coming up. If it's not, it's got to be in the next week or so.
What if it was right now?
I can do it for you right now.
Sure. Let's do it.
You want to do it live?
Yeah.
All right. Do it. Get a paper and pen. Do you have paper?
Oh my God, this is so good.
No, I don't. We need to get a paper and pen.
You know what? Your historian memory is all that you need.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do it live.
All right.
Wow.
Everyone who's listening, this is amazing.
Let's lock in.
Everyone who's listening, this is the most incredible opportunity to give you a gift. So take a moment, get out a notebook and a pen. And you're going to need that. And maybe some water. Okay.
Thank you, Daniel.
Take it.
I'll take it. Thank you. You got look at you, bougie water.
Valley.
Got those fat stacks.
Abundance.
You got the glass bottle now.
Mountain values abundance.
Okay. So I feel like it's important because this is also public that I learned this from somebody and then I expanded on it. I expanded on the applications of it in our lives. So I just feel like it's important because I don't want to assume to take credit for the process itself. Okay, you ready? Okay, so close your eyes. And so take a few deep breaths.
Oh, by the way, if you're in a car right now,
Yeah, please don't
do this
in a car.
process.
You're going to need a notebook, a pen, water, somewhere where you're sitting in a room that's private, personal for you, safe.
Or live on a podcast.
Or live on a podcast. This is epic. I guess the moment had to
do it.
The moment had to be now.
Yes.
It had to be.
Wow, God,
Okay.
that's amazing.
Here it goes.
So as a start, because all of us have been talking actively, who knows what's going on in your day, just take a few deep breaths and really use your breath as a vacuum for everything going on in your mind. And so to do that in the most peaceful way, take a deep breath in and hold it at the top until you can't hold it anymore. And as you're holding your breath right now, let everything build there in the peak of that breath. And then when you exhale, let it go. And let everything go. Let your thoughts go. Let everything that you're holding in your mind go. Good. And do that 2 more times. So take a deep breath in. Hold it. And be still. Be still at the peak of that breath and let everything build there. Anything in your mind, anything in your body, any tension. Notice that it keeps building. Any images that you may see, anything that you experience at all with your eyes closed. And then exhale and let everything go again. Good. And now just start to breathe normally and notice how relaxed you feel, even more relaxed than you did 2 breaths ago. And just breathe calmly and deeply and get comfortable in your chair. And now in your mind's eye, go back to the home that you grew up in, the real physical home that you grew up in as a child. And if you moved a lot, go back to the one that you remember the most in your earliest memories and just nod when you're there. Great. And in your mind's eye, walk around in this home. Almost as if you were pressing play on a movie. Walk through your home, go through all of the rooms, and as you walk through each room with every step that you take, everything becomes brighter, more colored, more vivid in detail, more clear in your memory. And pay attention to the physical attributes of the home. What the floor looked like, what the furniture looked like, the space, the walls looked like. Pay attention to all of the details. Walk through all of the rooms. Great. And now as you walk through this home, really start to tune into your body, tune into yourself, and pay attention to the emotional attributes associated with this home. And really feel into it. Who lived in the house with you? Did you feel safe? Did you feel protected? Did you feel threatened? Did you feel loved? Did you feel rejected? Did you feel abandoned? Did you feel happy? Did you feel sad? Just pay attention to all of the emotions that come up in your body and your being as you walk around in this home. And sink deeper into that memory. And now think about the most influential people in your life at the time, your father and your mother figures. And just nod if you grew up with both of them. Great. And now think about your father figure and walk into the room that most represented him. Whatever room you find yourself in that represented him, just nod for me when you're there. And pay attention as you stand in this room, what it was like to be with him. How did he treat you? Did he offer guidance or no guidance? Was he loving or distant, present or absent? Just pay attention to how he communicated with you, what he felt like just being in his presence. And how you feel in your body as you stand in the room with him or his energy. And just recall that and feel that. And now walk out of this room and take a deep breath. And walk into the room that now represents your mother. Whatever room that was, walk into that room. And take your time, but nod when you're there. And notice the difference in energy. Notice the difference in how you feel in your being, in your body, whatever the difference may be. And now pay attention to what it was like to be around her. What was the sound of her voice? How did she treat you? Was her voice soft and loving? Was it harsh and strict? Was she present or absent? What was it like to be around her? How would she communicate with you? What were her behaviors? And just recall that and feel that in every part of your being. Okay, good. And now take a deep breath and walk out of that room and find yourself walking back through the rooms of your home and walk into the room that represented you. The last and final room. Walk into the room that you spent more of your time in, where you would go to retreat or to play or to live in your own world for a minute. And nod when you're there. And now drop in and tune into your body here and your being. And what was it like to be in your mind? What was it like to be in your soul and your body and in your being? Just recall that and feel that deeply. And accept whatever comes up for whatever it was. Good. And now you can stand up and get out of that room too. Take a deep breath as you leave. And leave whatever came up, leave it there. And then one final lap. Walk through all of the rooms, allowing maybe more emotions, more memories, more details to come up and letting it all be there. Letting it all be there because it was all there. Now take a deep breath, the deepest breath. Good. Before you open your eyes, I want you to look around at everything that came up without maybe consciously understanding each layer of it at the deepest level. As much as you can with whatever you are capable of, just accept. Just accept your past, accept the family that you grew up in, accept the way that you were as a child. Just give acceptance as much as you can. however much you can, to everything that came up. Great. Okay, so since you don't have a paper and pen, you're going to talk out loud. Ready?
Okay.
Thankfully, you're good at that.
You're really good at that.
Okay.
And you really have great detail absorption. Okay, so with staying in the space of that memory as best as you can, tell us what the first prompt, if you're writing, is the top positive traits of your father and then mother. So tell us the top positive traits of your father and then mother.
Very smart. My dad is very smart. He's very detail-oriented. He's very analytical. He is a great provider. He always finds the solution.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What about for your mother?
My mom is very loving. She is a deep feeler. She's very nurturing. She's so warm. She's like the woman babies stare at the supermarket. She is an angel on earth.
It's beautiful. So the lesson in this first prompt is that the traits that you just listed are the traits you have in you. It's where you learned them.
Makes sense.
Checks out.
I buy it. I buy it.
It checks out. And so this is the more subjective one, but also objective because it's so obvious. Those are the traits that you modeled and integrated into your own identity, into your own personality and being, because they were positive. And so you looked at them as positive and you integrated them as a part of you. And those traits are very much a part of you, hugely. And you have your parents to thank for that. So the second prompt is, what are the top negative traits of your father and then your mother?
My dad was not very emotional. He was distant. He was always there, but he wasn't there. He was physically there, but not emotionally. He has a really high bar for excellence. He was always a very good student. He's very smart. He demands perfectionism. He's hard on himself. He doesn't own the feeling. He's a brewer and stewer. He has a very hard time, like I did for a long time, actually putting words to how he is feeling. And he'll just let it bottle up and bottle up and bottle up until he explodes. And it doesn't happen very often. But my mom is the opposite. She's more expressive. She's the one who tries to get the emotions out of him. And they go in that cycle. Now, negative traits of my mom. She's a perfectionist in a different way. She can be quite controlling. She doesn't like. She likes things to be exactly so. And if something doesn't, especially physical space, like she's very clean and likes things to be perfect and wants us to be perfect in a way. Like her first job was a cosmetologist. She still does my hair to this day. Thank you, Mom. She saves me a young bill on that. But when I was growing up, we always had the perfect hair and the perfect clothes, and we always looked perfect. And she always looked perfect. She always was done up and had her hair done and had her face on. So there wasn't a big margin for error or imperfection in the house.
How did that impact you negatively?
I was afraid to be seen for my imperfections. I felt like I had to be on all the time. I had to be at the top of everything. I had to be the best student. I had to be the best friend. I had to like far and away blow everyone out of the water. It wasn't just a matter of being like number one. It had to be like me, everyone else. I had to crush. I had to dominate. I had to be like the best thing anyone had ever seen in every area.
That makes sense. So the negative traits that you just listed for your father and your mother represent the traits that you may have in yourself that may express themselves towards other people or just towards you. So sometimes, and again, for anyone writing their own, nothing that we experience as a child is our fault. It's not our fault. It just creates our default. It creates our default way of being, our default identity. And we think throughout life that the default is who we really are, and it's not. It's just the default. It's one version of you. It's not who you are meant to be. It was who you were meant to start as to contribute to the things that you were meant to learn about yourself and see about yourself so that you could become who you're meant to be. But it's just your default. And so the negative traits, many times, if you grow up with somebody who is super abusive, there are a lot of negative traits that you write down, and it can be really hard to look at that and go, I don't have that in me because I said actively that I would not be like that. And so there's truth to that. This is more of the subjective part of the experience. A lot of the times when we experience something really negative, we have a driver to move away from that, to push against that. So we don't want it to be a part of us, and we push against it, but then we may find that the energy it takes to resist it still allows for it to show up in our life in other ways. And so it may be a pattern that we see in our relationships or our employers or whoever, our friends, even though it's not in us. So that's the negative part. And there are 3 more prompts. So that was number 2, the top negative traits. For number 3, I'm actually going to ask you to close your eyes one more time and take a deep breath. And for everyone listening, do the same. And slip back into the space of that memory of the room that represented you. And drop into your being at the time, your young body, and feel into, for you, what did you need the most as a child and didn't feel that you got enough of? What did you need the most? What did you yearn for and crave? And then when something comes to your mind, just start talking.
I needed to feel safe to be myself. I think I felt like I had to be performing a lot. Like I couldn't be imperfect. I couldn't have an emotion. So I had to go to my room and I had to cry by myself. I didn't like to be seen like that because I didn't feel like I could be safe to be seen like that. My mom tried, but my dad didn't. He didn't know. That wasn't his strength. He never comforted me emotionally. He didn't know how. It's not his fault. And I forgive him, but yeah, I just needed to feel safe. I need to feel safe to be myself. It's like I didn't have to always be doing something. I felt like I always had to be doing something to be seen, like I had to be the best. And that's when I would get praise. That's when they would tell me they were proud of me. I wasn't just enough, I wasn't just enough because I was, I was enough because of my accomplishments. My worth was tied to what I was doing, not who I was. So I always had to be doing something. I didn't know how to not be doing something. And when I needed rest, I couldn't be seen like that. I would be on the couch. I do my homework. I was a straight A student. I graduated college with a 4.0. I've never made a mistake, when I was a little kid. And when I would be tired after doing homework, I'd be on the couch and my dad would come over and I physically couldn't be around him because I felt like I couldn't be, I couldn't just rest. I couldn't exist in his eyes, as not doing something. Like, he needed to see me doing homework. He needed to see me, like, performing, like, doing something, like, making him proud. I couldn't just be there. I couldn't just lay on the couch. And I'd always feel really bad because he'd come over and me and my sister, we'd just leave. And I know it'd make him sad. He didn't understand why we couldn't just be there with him. But, like, he couldn't be there with us. That's why we left, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You take a deep breath. And let the emotion be there. Just breathe. Okay, take another deep breath. It's beautiful. So, when you feel safe, you can open your eyes. And take your time.
Hi.
Breathe. Okay. So that's the thing that you've been looking for your whole life. It's just safety to be, not to have to build anything or do anything. It's safety to be you and not have to perform and not have to be smart and not have to be the person that drops the bombs of truth on people's businesses. It's just the safety to be you, to just rest and for you to be valuable in being. And that's what you've looked for. Just like we've had our own version of that, every human on this planet has theirs. And that's what it is for you. And so in stage 1, that's the thing that we're looking for subconsciously. That's the thing that you're looking for subconsciously, is permission to be safe to be. And when someone gives you that, it's really hard to receive because it's coming from this dependent place. And as children, we don't even have like the neurology to receive what, like, think about this, your conditioning and your programming begins as a child. And so if that was not part of your experience, and Gabor Mate, incredible, talks about this, that children need to be allowed to experience the range of every emotion so that they know how to experience that in life. If that's not part of your programming, then when you finally get the safety from someone and it's coming from a dependent place, you can't receive it. It doesn't feel genuine. You can't recognize it as real or true or enough. And so it becomes this black hole of, I need safety, I need permission to be, or safety to be, and not have to do anything. But when somebody gives me that, it doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
And then we look for it again because we still think we need it. But stage 2 is where you give that to yourself. You give yourself the safety to just be. And you put the armor down of needing to do anything or build anything or be, intelligent. It's, even though that's being, but it's the difference for you between being and doing. And that stage 2 and the stage 3 is the gift that you've been giving your whole life, whether you've realized it or not. Your reason for being is to give other people the safety to be, but you can't give it to them if you haven't given it to yourself. It's congruence. Those stages are sequential. And the beauty of what you're going through right now in your life, which publicly a lot of people know about because you've been tweeting about it, and that is your gift. You tweet and share very openly everything that you're working through, is stepping into coaching or stepping into a business where you don't have to do anything. You just get to be.
And you get
to help other people be. And you get to provide safety. And what you're building with the walks gives people the safety to be themselves. You're already giving your gift. Most people are. Mostly all of us are giving our gift in some way. Maybe not all. That's an exaggeration. But I think that you would find that you're giving it in some way. And maybe realizing what the gift is helps you give it if you're not. But you have been giving it already. And so your reason for being is to actually be able to transcend where that need wasn't met so that you can give it to the people in your life and everyone around you. You can give it to the world. It's why you're here, and it's why you had the experiences. And this, again, is from a psycho-spiritual perspective. It's integrating some spirituality into what we learn from just Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatever other model. Your reason for being is to give the very thing that you didn't get to others, and you can only give it once you've given it to yourself. And it will always be the tug for the rest of your life because it is your programming and it is your conditioning. And just when you think you've figured it out fully how to give it to yourself, you'll see where there's space for you to deepen in that. And that happens for me all the time. All the time. In fact, being here on this podcast is the version of me that had to grow. Being online is being seen. And it being okay for me to actually have that versus just constantly giving it to other people. So there's more work for me to do in my relationship with myself, where it's okay for me to be seen and it's okay for me to talk about the things that I've experienced as a child and my story and my journey. And it's okay for me to have a story because the stage 1 version of me had a story that she used for attention. And the stage 3 version of me has a story that I want to use for healing. And so your gift of creating safety in being, is something so beautiful that you get to work through and give yourself. And it's the thing that you're giving people already. It just, in many ways, this exercise gives you the words for it. It marries the words and the feeling. And then once you marry those two, you really can't unsee it.
Are
What's
you
coming up for you?
Are you thinking what I'm thinking about the values?
That was the first thing that came up as soon as you said it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
Your number one value
Yeah.
Yeah.
is safety.
I haven't told you this yet. I told Talia this last week. So I was in a traditional therapy appointment. Not this soul surgery that we have.
We
going
love
on
all
here.
forms of therapy.
We
here.
take
Great.
whatever introspection
all
we can
forms.
get. We
Yeah.
really do. But I was in a session with my girl Nina, and I was telling her, because I just thought it was so interesting how when Danny and I did the values exercise at the Holy Hyatt in November, pre-Jamaica trip, we did it real quick. And you can explain this better than me, but it's basically where you list out 10 of your values and you pin them against each other in what is more important. So if you say my values are love, safety, family, it's like, what's more important, love or safety?
Yeah.
Okay, now what's more important, safety or family? And you just keep doing that until you get to the actual order in your heart of your values. Did I explain that well?
Yeah, it's perfect.
And so Danny and I did this exercise, and at the end of the day, the number one value for me was safety.
Would you look at that?
You can't make it up. And at the time, this is what was really interesting. You did not challenge me on that or say like, why?
Yeah.
You know, you just let that be because that's you. And you just like, you love and accept it all. And that's Danny. And so I didn't really think anything of it. Like, and then
Our truth triangle?
yeah. Well, of course. But I'm in this therapy session last week. And I tell Nina, like, oh, you know, I did this values exercise back in November. And what do you know? My number one value was safety. And she goes,
Safety.
and I'm like, yeah. And she's like, let me cook on that for a second. And she takes like 2 minutes to just, and I see the wheels turning.
Yeah.
And she goes, you having safety as your top value is like if you ask somebody, what's something you can't live without? And they said food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like, why is that? Are you hungry?
Yeah.
It's true.
Are you unsafe? And she drew that comparison because she's like, if safety is the number one thing on your mind, do you not think you have it?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
Nina.
Yeah.
And so we teased that out a little bit. And she had said a line I'm still processing, but she was like, she's noticed within me, I have very extreme language.
You think?
She's like, really? She noticed now?
Yeah, I'm not how you say nonchalant. It's very intense, baby. It's extreme. It's black or white, yes or no. It's cutting them off immediately. There's no gray in my world.
There's a tendency for there to not be gray.
I know, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But, she's like, something I've noticed about you is you have such extreme language. And I was like, oh, really? Because I was like, oh, Nina, you'd be so proud of me. I've gotten so good at rejecting men. And she goes, Elle, that language is so extreme. She goes, why can't you just politely decline men? Why do you have to reject them? And the way you say it is like you're cutting them with a sword.
Yep, that's how you treat it.
And I was like, wait. Yeah, hold on. Run it back. Are you trying to tell me that that's not normal? Like, is this like it?
Right.
Am I placing an undue intensity on the actions of other people and on the actions of myself? And we tease this out.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think you have created a world, like a literal worldview, where you are prey.
That resonates.
And everyone who comes to you wants something from you, wants to take advantage of you in any way, business, friendship, romance.
Yeah.
And your fight or flight activates anytime somebody approaches you.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting with that and I'm like, oh my God, it does. I have always felt that way. That's why when people approach me in public, well, this is a past version.
Yeah.
It would set off a deep fear. I would people please because I was afraid to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to die.
Right.
It was that extreme. It was like, what if I reject this, politely decline this person, and then they hurt me?
Yeah.
I could not be put in that position. So I would dance around, or, it'd be like I'd entertain what I did not want.
Yeah.
Because I did not feel safe enough to stand up for what I did want.
That's really true.
In any way. So she said, I think that you have a form of PTSD from your own worldview that you've created.
Wow.
Where's Nina?
Yeah, come on, Nina.
Come on, Nina. Get on the
Get in here.
podcast.
Nina.
Yeah, that's really true.
And I told
to add it to the group chat.
Please.
So true.
The truth
That
square.
really resonates.
And I told that to T on our walk because this just happened.
It really resonates.
And she and I, because I feel like you resonated with that.
Well, this is an example, again, of where our truth triangle, what we've called our friendships, is there's meaning behind that. Like, it's significantly always this way. Your unlock around safety, at the same time, I have a session with my aunt, who's a healer, reader. She can channel you like you've never seen. And she says that to me. She goes, I feel like you have blinders on and you're not looking around in your life at what you've created.
Yeah.
And there's a lack of safety for you. And I'm like, you can't make it up. And so what's really powerful about this for you is that in stage 2, you learn to give that to yourself.
Yeah.
In fact, like this podcast being today for me was my opportunity to lean into that and create safety in the presence of friends, even though that was not planned, because all of this just happened serendipitously, literally, within the span of the past few weeks. And so there's always like, I think what's beautiful, again, is that the nugget for you, the nugget of truth for you to look at that Nina gives you, I somehow get in a totally different context with a totally different person the same week. And then here we are doing RFB Live, and your gift is to create safety. It's not resting bitch face. It's a reason for being.
Oh, yeah.
It's yours is safety. Yeah. And I feel like what you just said around the safety to speak, to tell people what you want or don't want is very similar to what I'm going through personally, of the safety to speak and remove the shackles from my own environment and childhood growing up of secrecy.
Yes.
Deep secrecy. It was a cultural thing.
Yes.
Many families have that. It's a cultural thing today still of just shame and secrecy. And so the safety to speak is really, I think the only way to heal that is to start.
Yeah. It's amazing because the parallel of safety, I mean, Susie telling you that, Nina telling me that, us talking
Always
about
the
this
same
right
time.
now, it's incredible. And I think that like what came to me in one of my meditation diaries as I was sitting on the floor talking to myself, for anyone who doesn't know, that's what I do. I meditate for 30 minutes in my head and then I just pop off about whatever floats there. And there was a click that happened as I was talking where I finally figured out why romance is so hard for me.
Mm.
It's because of this. It's because it feels so life or death
Mm.
in my body
Mm.
that the other person
Wow.
is like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because like this person's a catch. And why
Yeah.
is she holding on so tight?
Yeah.
And it actually drives the person away
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
hold on so tight
Yeah.
because I can't tolerate the gray area. The gray area is the unsafety.
Mm.
The gray area is like, what are we doing here? You know, it's like, are we married or what? What's
What are
going
we
on?
doing here
Yeah,
versus
what-
being?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Good
What
call
are we
out.
doing? What are we
What are
doing?
we doing? Are
Yeah.
we doing anything? If we're not doing anything, can we
That-
go?
That it's not significant
Yeah.
if we're not doing anything.
Therefore,
here.
I can't just be in the feelings of this. I have to make sure we're doing something.
So good.
Which is also why, and this is an insight I wrote about months ago, I turned into a nutty professor nun
Mm.
around men because it's all the doing.
Mm.
When I like someone, it's like, it's the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, this is everything.
Yeah.
I have to lock in. Like I have to put all of the eggs in this one basket, who I don't even really know this basket.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've known this basket for 2 weeks
Right.
and I'm so like,
Right.
I gotta sell it. I gotta perform.
Wow. I'm seeing a very strong parallel here.
I know.
It's the exact same for me in a different context where it's like, I have to do something
Yep.
with visceral
Mm.
versus, oh, I can just be
Yeah.
Talia.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's okay to just be Talia and
Yes.
speak about Talia. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I would go on these dates, you guys know, but I'm just telling the people. And I would literally just be coaching the men for a long time and giving them so much value because that was what I felt like I needed to do. It was like I couldn't just be there. I couldn't
Yeah.
just be myself. Like I had to like prove
Yeah.
my worth to them through the quality of my insights, how amazing my conversation skills were, how funny I was, literally every aspect of me as a person, how I looked, all of it was like that was the focus. It was never just like I can breathe
Yeah.
and be myself.
Yeah.
It always had a layer of performance on it because there was a heaviness. And Nina brought my awareness to the fact that it was like, because romance feels so heavy for you, it boomerangs to the man and it makes him question what is going on here. And so you get 2 months into a relationship with somebody who I actually really liked because I have great relationships when the man is really like when the pedestal's reversed and the man thinks I'm a goddess and like I can do no wrong. I have a great time in those relationships, but I don't like those men
Yeah.
as deeply. But it's when I actually really like a man that this thing gets activated. And then I go into game mode, the Super Bowl, I got to prepare, I got to train, and then I mess it up. Similar to your conversation with your sister, where you called me and you were like, she just started talking to me again, and I don't want to mess it up.
Mm.
And I was like, the second you start telling yourself that you don't want to mess it up, you're going to mess it up.
Yeah.
Mm.
The second you start acting out of that place, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would start saying that same thing.
Mm.
I don't want to mess it up.
Mm.
If you're telling yourself that in any dynamic, it is not the right dynamic, or you need to breathe and really check in with yourself and say, you can't mess it up. You cannot mess it up. You can't even really be rejected.
Mm.
Like, There is no mistake here. There's no wrong way that you can show up. It's either like you show up as yourself and the person says, heck yeah, or heck no. And it's perfect, no matter what that answer is. And I think for me, it was like, it had to be a heck yeah from the man. It had to. So much hinged on it being a heck yeah for the man, even though it wasn't one for me. It was not one for me.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. It's like being, changing the frame from being chosen to choosing is the journey.
Can I go back for a second? This is so important. And this is why usually we don't do it live. But there's a really significant 2 other prompts from the RFB process that are very connected to this.
Wow. Of course.
So I know that you're now like talking and we're not even talking about the process. You're not even in that space anymore.
No,
so
I'm
maybe you can go back to it. And anyone that was just like has been here and wants to complete that process, there are 2 other prompts that are really significant and tie into everything that you're describing around the way that you react when there isn't safety. So can you go back to that space for a moment?
Yeah.
I know this is genuinely not how we normally roll with this, but so go back to that space of the memory of your childhood, of your father and of your mother. And just reconnect with that for a moment and start sharing out loud what were some of your top negative feelings and frustrations as a child.
I couldn't exist in common spaces. Like I couldn't be seen unproductive. I didn't want to be seen as emotional. My sister was very emotionally expressive, and I didn't want to take up space from her. I feel like she needed it more than me. So I would just go to my room a lot and spend a lot of time by myself. And I would actually like do things like I would try to be seen for who I was. Like in high school, I would go into these chat rooms with like 40-year-old people and talk about philosophy and current events. And I would write a ton, and I had an alias for poetry, and I just never felt like I could own my words. Like for whatever reason, there was a fissure in my identity. I couldn't be seen as a full person. I could only be seen as this character, you know, like all of the good parts needed to be seen, but any of like the insecurities, any of the negative emotions, any of that, I didn't want to be seen. I didn't feel like I could be seen like that.
Okay. And the last prompt, how would you react to those feelings and those frustrations? How would you cope? What would you do? Positive or negative?
Everything I did was in service of being perfect. So I would make sure all my homework was done. I made sure I got the best grades in the class. I made sure that I looked perfect every day. My hair was always curled or straightened. I always had my makeup on. I never had an off day. I never had a day where I did not, not one day did I ever go to school and not have makeup on in high school. Not one day. Wow. I never showed up with wet hair. I never showed up rolling into class late. No, I was on top of it every day. I never dropped the ball once. I would retreat to my room a lot. I felt exhausted by the end of the day because it was just like a performance. It felt like I was like acting all day. And then I would go home and I'd finish my work, and then I'd go to my room and just feel all the things I didn't feel like I could feel in front of other people. I had these image issues. Like you could call it an eating disorder, I would say. I was very sensitive to feedback. People, especially the men in my high school, would like make these comments, like try to convince me I was really ugly and overweight, and they'd constantly like neg me. And it got to a point where I started like not eating anything except for like a mac and cheese cup that was like 500 calories. And I like lost a bunch of weight, and I was like really hard on my image, and but like no one knew that, and everyone kept complimenting me. And I like was like 114 pounds, which is just like on my frame. It's wildly unhealthy. I would just like punish myself a lot. Like no one knew because I looked very happy all the time, but I just had a lot of I had very punishing behaviors. I was very sensitive to everything, every piece of feedback, every negative thing anyone would tell me. It would stick to me. It would stay in my head. It would play on repeat forever. But I could never be seen reacting ever. If someone would insult me, I would literally pretend not to hear it. Like I was Teflon, but on the inside, I was like so sensitive, and I would go home and cry, but no one would ever see me. I was like tough as nails to the outside. So it was very, very, very exhausting. I think I coped by trying to be perfect, or really pretend, perform, act.
Thank you for sharing all of that. So the significance of that is when your needs aren't met, which is your safety to be, and you're looking for that from others, those are the feelings and the ways you'll react today.
Yeah.
It's all part of this default identity. And so the coping mechanism almost is like, I'm safe if I'm perfect. And I'm safe if I'm performing. But if I'm just being, that's a different version of me. And so the growth in all of this, which is exactly where what you just said, which is what triggered me to come back to this exercise around, will I mess this up? What if I mess it up?
Yeah.
Is around perfection. And the beauty of it is that it's just one version of your identity. It's just the one that you grew up building. And when you become aware of this, as you are aware of it now, your identity in stage 2, which is creating safety, giving yourself permission to feel safe in just being in front of people versus doing in front of people. Yeah. All of those feelings and reactions and frustrations, everything that you just said changes. It reconstructs itself. You don't even have to do much because it follows your new intent and your new identity. And then as you step into RFB, your gift of creating safety for others, the feelings and the ways that you act completely reconstruct themselves there too in a very different way. And so I just wanted to bring that full circle because I realized that we had not completed it. And then you were also mentioning things around how you react today when you're in the gray. And that's the correlation. It's just one version of you. But when you become aware of it and you can see it still playing out in your life today, it signals, it's like an alarm goes off in a good way where you're like, oh, this is my default. This is my default playing out. So where do I have to go? What stage do I have to focus in on to evolve not only how I relate to myself, but then all of the corresponding feelings, frustrations, reactions, ways of relating to others. Yeah. Just naturally, it will evolve versus you needing to do so much work around it.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. It's like, it's so interesting to have this insight around safety ring so true for us over the last just week. Yeah. Because there was another key part of this that happened, of course, in the last week with the Yoni Awakening class.
That was interesting.
That really shifted this for me in a big way. And this goes full circle to what Talia was saying an hour ago about how there's an embodiment to the truth that will shift you out of the rut. Yeah. Because the truth, the knowing in the mind, is really important. The awareness of what is going on or what your character is playing out is so important. But then you have to feel what that experience is in order to actually shift out of it.
Yeah.
And in some ways, that's when you're confronted with the pattern, you choose differently. It's breaking the loop. But in other ways, for Talia and I, with the safety, it's really going back to the body and saying, how do I make you, like this body, feel safe? And this was a beautiful insight that we've stumbled into really just by accident in multiple ways. But Talia and I were making signs for Danny's marathon, and something just came over me, and I was like, hearing you talk about your hips being tight and how your hips have always been tight, and you went to get your massage, and he was like, there's something deeper here, Talia. Yeah. There's something emotional here that is preventing you from finding relief in this area.
Yeah. Can I give additional context?
Absolutely.
I know people listening would relate to this because it is a chronic thing that a lot of people experience. I have always been very healthy, like strong. I've always done a lot of strength training. Maybe not healthy emotionally, because it was definitely coming from a place of like, I need to look perfect. Goes back to that. But I was always very fit. And then a couple of years ago, the day that I ended my last relationship, I started experiencing back pain, like nerve pain, like back pain, the type of back pain that like 50% of our population experiences later in their life or even in their 30s. And I was like, I think I was 27 at this point. I was 28. I'm 30 now. And I was in agony, like the nerve pain that would shoot down. And I was like, I'm 27. Like, what? Wow. How is this my life now? I couldn't sit. I couldn't work. I mean, debilitating back pain. And I'm not the only one that experiences this. And I'm not the only one that goes down a traditional way of healing that, which is chiropractors, God bless them, physical therapists, God bless them. It was not helping me. I was being given steroid injections. Like, it was bad.
Wow.
They told me I had herniations. A lot of us have herniations and don't feel any pain. And it was just this whole world that I had never, I didn't even know where to start. I understood the mind. Me and the body didn't really have a relationship there. Mm-hmm. And so it was very connected to that. So for the past 3 years, I've been healing my back pain. And I've come across books. Thank God I'm so much better now. This 3 years ago, I couldn't sit for more than 20 minutes. Period. Wow. It's truly transformed. And it's because of bringing together the like body and mind and soul integration of why pain manifests at all.
Yeah.
And so that was just additional context, because that's something I just felt called to share. I know so many people experience that and don't know how to help themselves. And I got to a point where I would go out for dinner with Max. I'd have to bring this little like pillow because I wasn't sure if the chair was going to support me and I was going to be in pain all night. And I would look around and be like envious of like, oh my God, like I'm 27. This 50-year-old woman doesn't look like she's in pain. Wow. Like, it was pervasive around my mental health for a couple of years. And then I woke up to what I've always started doing, or where I started my healing, which was the emotional correlation to everything. And I started going deep down that rabbit hole of like, what emotions are back pain related to? And there's a book called Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. Incredible. And it was anger and anxiety. Anger and anxiety. So much of what we physically experience is a repression of emotions that we don't feel are safe to express. And so that's just additional context, because it's gotten so much better. And every now and then, after I do a really intense workout, my hips will like lock up. So it's more in my hips than my back. And so this was the context for me sharing that with Elle, and then Elle saying, we should go to this workshop.
Yeah. So you had specifically said my hips and my pelvis.
Yeah.
You said your pelvis.
Pelvic area, yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because just an hour ago, I got this weird intuitive hit, never weird, always on purpose, to look up the classes at my yoga studio. And there's this one called Yoni Awakening, and it just like the name stood out to me, and I click it, and it's all about healing your relationship with your pelvis. what are the odds of that? Should we go? And you were like, yeah, let's go.
It was so wild.
So we go to this class, and for this one insight alone, this is responsible for why I am showing up so differently over the last week. And multiple people have noticed that I am more calm. She said, and this was like a 2-minute thing, a lot of women grow up sucking in their stomach, either because they want to look perfect, they want to look skinnier, but it's this unconscious sucking in of the stomach that we do all day long. And that sends a message to your body that you are in fight or flight.
That you are not safe.
That you are not safe. And when I heard her say that, I was like, I'm sucking in my stomach right now.
Yeah. Both of us.
Like right in this moment. Yeah. And it was like the choirs of angels started singing. I was like, this is it. This is what I have been missing.
I felt the same.
And every day since I heard that one line, I have been so conscious of just breathing fully and making sure I was not sucking in my stomach.
Yeah.
And I even looked into this. It's called like hourglass syndrome. It's like they've given it a name. It's deeply unhealthy to suck in your stomach all day long. Yeah. Not only just because it makes you unsafe.
Compresses all of your organs.
It compresses all your organs. You can't breathe. You can't. It's like you're wearing a corset.
It also compresses your as a woman. It compresses your sexual organs, which is the root of your creativity
and your flow, your breathing, your oxygen flow. It's like constricting your relationship to your sexual nature, which like isn't that just spot on for you and I?
Well, to bring it even full circle again, that book that Max gave me. Max gives me this book, Eastern Mind, Western Body by Anodea Judith. Like he just finds it. And he gives me this book, and it's basically talks about the root chakra of safety, and when you do not feel safe, there's a split between your mind and body, and you literally dissociate from yourself. And there are so many of us that are walking around every day in life, in business, in relationships that are literally dissociated.
Yes.
We're dissociated from our mind and our body because there isn't this groundedness and rootedness in feeling safe. Safe to be, safe to do, safe to express. Just safety. Even if around you, as you open your eyes and look around, there isn't anything that poses, there's nothing that is a threat.
But internally,
it can feel that way.
It's the red flashing lights of danger, danger, get out of here, which is why I was seeing everyone as a predator.
I love you both so much, and I could continue doing this for another 5 hours.
How long have we been here?
We've been here for
it's been a long time.
2.5 hours about.
Of course we have.
Time just disappears.
Unfortunately, our studio session is up here, but I'm so grateful for you beautiful people. Thank you so much for who you are and what you've done for my life. You guys are the best. And I just have so much love for all of you. Thank you. And I'm so grateful for what we're about to build in this world.
So
and
fun.
Thank you for being you.
Do we have 3 minutes potentially, or is over? What
do you want to do?
I feel like we've gotten a lot of interest around our friendships.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to, like, in 60 seconds, ask each of you what you had to be ready for, like what you had to shift in yourself to be ready for this type of friendship.
This could be the next episode.
Right. Cliffhanger.
Yeah. That's the cliffhanger for the next episode. We'll do the next one maybe next week.
Honestly,
there's literally no rush.
Yeah.
I just feel like that might be an important thing for us to talk about, since we've just displayed
what you've just seen right here is like what happens when we go to Talia's house and sit by the fireplace and just talk for hours.
It doesn't end.
Yeah.
So what you've just witnessed is very like par for the course for the friendship, but we did not talk about really how we came to be and how we prepared ourselves for this kind of relationship, which I think is really special.
Next time.
I love you.
Thank you for listening.
I love all of you.
All of you.
Thank you so much.
And follow these people on social media if you are so inclined. Link down below.
If the spirit moves you.
Thank you.
If the spirit moves you. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.